What is up, everyone? Happy Thursday. We're doing it again. I'm Michael Kaufman, and this is our Desert Spotlight live stream. And oh man, we have, this is such an exciting show. First of all, we're here at Unity Through Community. One of our earlier streams we were here, but Matthew James and the folks at Unity were kind enough to host this event, so thank you to you guys. And last time we were here, we actually got to touch on, they did a mural. It's still a work in progress, but I was able to get some footage of what they've accomplished with that piece since we interviewed them. And I got to tell you, it took my brain on a few spins. It's amazing. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, it's a sight to behold. So they're still working on that. We'll probably check in again in a couple of weeks or something and follow up with them. But it's amazing work out here. This is one of the coolest creative hubs. Located in Tempe, Dano Plaza. You got to check it out. It's an amazing creative space, and it's such an inviting atmosphere for especially tonight's show because we have two very talented artists, one a poet and writer, Austin Davis, and one a jazz musician, Joe Allie. And these two just met only like this week, and they have, in the time that we started setting up and everything, they've just found this lovely chemistry, this lovely vibe. And tonight you're going to get to listen to some of that. And then we'll talk to them and get to know the guys. And yeah, let's have a fun show. So without further ado, Austin Davis and Joe Allie.
Thank you so much, Michael. I feel honored and blessed to be here. These first two poems that I'm going to read tonight are from my next full-length book, which is called Lick My Neck and Lie About the Weather. All about all the fun stuff, fear and love, loss, uncertainty, all that good stuff. So this first poem is called Tell Me About Your Day. We meet up in the library parking lot every night after you get off work at the drugstore. We lay on the roof of my van and stare up at the sky. You call the stars cosmic freckles and tell me that our biology teacher from high school buys glow-in-the-dark condoms, and that the V on the middle of a Valium pill looks like a little heart that wants more than anything to become a circle. I nod and laugh and think about how we're both going to die some night in our sleep and we'll never see it coming. The leaves have no idea they're going to fall. The fish have no idea they're going to be eaten by an unhappy family around a big oak table. And you have no idea that getting to hear about your day for 32 and a half minutes every night is what makes me okay with waking up in the morning. I suppose this is the way living has always been. You think you're happy until you meet that person who makes you notice every ache in your chest. Maybe we should drive my van into the book deposit bin and steal all the books our consciences can carry. Maybe we should make out, or make love, or make up some story about a little home in the mountains with art on the walls, a pineapple pizza cooking in the oven, and 1979 by the Smashing Pumpkins playing on a ham radio in the kitchen. In my mind, you're pulling into the driveway in the same car you're driving tonight, about to lay with me on our rug of pink and yellow orchids. Tell me all about the last 10 hours of your existence and make me feel like the man who cried into the clouds during a solar eclipse and did not go blind. Hell yeah. Oh, chills, awesome. Oh my God, awesome. Well, hey, this next poem, a little darker, but still along the same lines, same themes there, all the fun stuff. This poem is called Pythagoras. Last night, as I was driving to your apartment, I threw up whatever the hell was in my stomach all over the steering wheel and hit a feral cat. I named her Pythagoras and dug her a grave with my car keys next to a patch of purple wildflowers by the highway. It scared me that I drove away and didn't cry. What's the difference between a handful of benzos and you holding my face in your hands and assuring me I'll be okay? Do you ever feel like an amoeba in a drop of water on Mars? When I'm struggling to keep my eyes open and you notice how much weight I've lost. I keep thinking I'll step out of this rough patch eventually, but the grass has grown so high, I can feel it brush along my lips. You don't like how bony my shoulders are, but we still touch each other sometimes with the lights off.
Oh my God. Okay, so this whole thing has been, I mean, this is really cool. I'll call you up in just a second.
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk to you about what we just watched. And we'll talk a little bit about, where we are too and how this, I think, all kind of ties together. But I mean, coming from somewhere where, I explore relationships a lot in the stuff that I write, and there's so many avenues I go with that, and it's an integral part of, what I do in my life, and to hear those kind of poems, hear that kind of work it's incredible. So I'm going to bring him up because I have questions, but Austin, come on down. You're in the copper chair.
Yeah.
It's topical. But hey, man, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, man, thank you for having me here.
It's so cool that we were actually, because I heard about you through that AZTV, and I saw what you were doing there, and you reached out to me, and I think it's really cool that we were able to take this somewhere, and especially a place like this, because you'd never heard of Unity through Community or this space prior to this, right?
Never been here before, and just walking in, this is probably one of the coolest places I have ever been in my entire life, and I love it here, man. I think when you're in a space and you can just feel like the energy of our shared humanity all around you, that's something special.
Yeah, and I think the really cool thing is that you and Joe are able to shift tones, and I think you're able to shape and use the atmosphere of the room to the tones. I mean, you go from something a much more, I think, emotionally uplifting to somewhere a little bit more like cynical and grimy. Yeah. And my thing was, are those the same? Is that the same relationship, or are those two different relationships? Like, what was the case there?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think for a lot of my poems, it starts in a place of reality. You take this real emotion, this real event that happened, and you build off of it. You create a story around it. So in each of those poems, those are both based off multiple relationships. Okay. And it's all kind of just like a synergy of what I've experienced, and using that place as a point to jump off of, and create something that hopefully can connect with other people who have experienced what I have or are feeling similarly, because that's the goal for me in the end, is to make anyone feel a little less alone in what they're going through.
And why do you focus on that? Why is that a mission of yours? Where does that come from for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just know, looking back on my life, how many times I felt alone, and loneliness is scary and it's terrifying. And if we can help people feel a little less alone in that, then I think we're doing something beautiful. So and I just know, for me personally, in my darkest times, music and art and poetry is what got me through it, and it showed me that I can get through this, and I'm gonna be okay. And other people have have experienced this, you know?
Now, the books that, because you're working on a lot of different ones, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to explore, and this is something you want to talk about. You're trying to explore the aspects of mental health in your work.
Yeah.
When you say that, what are you specifically speaking to, like both in your life, but things maybe you've observed around you as well? Like where do those paths in real life? Where have you found them?
Yeah. Well, you know, since I was a kid, I was diagnosed with OCD. And growing up with that as a kid, it was really scary, and it was really, really weird for me, just because I felt really ostracized, really different. You know, when I felt the need to complete these compulsions to get rid of the fear that I had in my head. That's what OCD is for me, you know. Mm-hmm. And I found art as a way to explore that and put that down on paper, get it out of my head, you know, because oftentimes I just feel like the thoughts in my head are bouncing around so fast, and it gets overwhelming, you know. So putting it down on something physical and tangible that I can pick up and look at and share with the world is therapy for me. So
yeah, I think so.
Art saves my life every day, you know.
It should. Yeah, and I love that sentiment. I think that's authentic, and and we'll talk more about what you've been doing with that, you know, in your whole life and what you plan to do.
Yeah.
But you know, even for me, just listening to that, like I said, like relationships have always been something that have shaped my decisions and even my state of mind, you know.
Right.
And when you feel like there's these really high points, right? Like you have these moments where you're walking on clouds, you can be kind of clever and
it's the high, man. Yeah.
And then to have that just suddenly change, and not even just with something like a breakup or a fight, but even like, you know, losing people. Like my grandmother lost her, you know, my grandfather, you know, over a very extensive period of time. They were married for like 20 odd years. Yeah. And, you know, watching him pass on, it was dark. It was hard to see that, and it's like, you know, you can find those little nuggets of truth even in your work, and I don't know, like hearing that stuff really helps, you know. And it's so.
Thank you, man.
I think
Thank you.
You tell me, you know, it's therapy for yourself, but it really does help others too. I think it's really nice to see you attempting that. So.
Thank you, man. I mean, that means the world to me.
Yeah,
So
no, I'm sure it does. So I love hearing it, and I love that you're confident enough to go up and read it and embrace it, and I don't know, like someone with something like the feeling of loneliness, you know, that's not a common opportunity or practice, you know. Yeah. Sometimes they just double down and stay there, and it's really refreshing to see someone say, no, I'm not going to be alone. I'm going to share my thoughts and make people recognize that we're all thinking and feeling, you know, similar things, even with different experiences.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. So I'm really looking forward to your next pieces.
Thank
you, man. If it's cool with you, I'd like to jump into the next ones. But this was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, let's get into it, man.
Let's do this. Joe's chilling over there. Joe's having a great time.
Joe's
we'll talk to you in
chilling,
a second, Joe. You're chilling, man. You're killing it over there.
Joe is just a straight genius, so I just feel honored to be here, man.
Like I said earlier, it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
It takes two to tango.
All right, well, so these next two poems that I'm going to read were both written about experiences I've had with those on the streets. So this first poem is called Phoenix. Red and orange bird, rising from its ashes, is my home. In its belly, our coldest days are a summer night to most. Our language is water, ice, gathering inside a Circle K for air conditioning. Two bodies dance in the canal. A shot of Tito's chills the bone. So much skin is washed in the gutters and lakes once we're all asleep. Phoenix, where our rooftops are slanted like wings, but the adobe tile is too smooth to lay on and watch the stars from. Phoenix, where we shake hands, laugh about our shared sweat, admire the shapes of cacti, but never look each other in the eye. Phoenix, where the state capital is 2 blocks from the tent city, and wealth and poverty are 2 sides of the same street. A mother waters the tumbleweeds with dark brown urine. Two lovers spoon on the sidewalk. A child thinner than the sycamore branches stares at the sun, but doesn't blink, cry, or look away. We've been caught in the flames for so long. I can only hope we'll still be reborn. Oh, love it. Amazing. So this 4th poem I'm going to read tonight is called "The Streets Are Quiet Down in Hell." And like many of the poems that I've been writing lately about my experiences with those on the streets, this was inspired by a specific moment I had with someone. And I wrote it the night of that I had the experience. I just went back in my car and wrote this poem. And I found that that's been kind of common lately, is I'll just experience something and then have to let it come out. So this poem is called "The Streets Are Quiet Down in Hell." There's a bridge that runs over the freeway where 2 brothers sit at night and drink. I share tall boys with them on Tuesdays as the cars whiz by below us. The hum of traffic is like a mother's heartbeat, a soothing pulse that we hope will never slow. So many people are off to houses and girlfriends and sex and babies and families, the first brother says with a cigarette between his teeth. I stare at him, and he stares at the guardrail the city put around the bridge to stop people from jumping. The second brother turns to me, leans in, and whispers, "The streets are quiet down in hell, ain't they?"
Oh my God. Wow, man. That second set, well, oh God, you did it. And I think I'll have so many questions for you for our next round.
Yeah.
But I do want to speak to the sound of this one for sure, because there was a very strong, especially with that first one, that emphasis. Like hearing the story of Phoenix and hearing, what you're seeing and observing. It was brought out with that musical aspect.
Oh, yeah.
And I really was able to feel that one out of all of them. So Joe, do you mind? I want you to come down here real quick because I want to talk to you now. Because I love his work, and he even told me when he called me about this gig, he was like, "Hey, I have this idea. I want to do music with this, and not just any music, jazz." And then you and I talked, and you're saying you love the improvising and the ability to create on the spot. So thank you for doing this first of all. But tell me a little bit about like how you discovered that you love doing that, and like that's something you believe in.
Discovering jazz, specifically?
Finding a musical niche, I guess,
I think it never really even started with jazz. Like I was a big metalhead when I was growing up. Like System of a Down is my all-time favorite band.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, like all time. I know like everything about Surge and like stuff like that. I think it just kind of was a natural progression from wanting to just be a better musician. Mm-hmm. And I just think public school, even at the college level, has just not caught up to modern times. Yeah. So it was really one or the other. It was either classical or jazz, and classical just seemed really dry. So jazz just seemed more fun because, you had the opportunity to have a little bit more freedom and improvise, which I learned isn't necessarily the truth all the time.
Oh, okay.
Once you're actually in the culture, I guess.
Yeah.
a lot of it is more prepared than I think people lead
Yeah.
on. I'm probably letting on some secrets right now.
Yeah, don't tell them it's fixed. I get that.
But I mean, I never really set out to be a jazz musician. I just wanted to be a musician.
Yeah.
And I guess I've just grown to love that style of music specifically, and it's given me the tools to kind of grow as a musician and be able to cover all these different facets, I guess, or different just styles in general. I can kind of fit a bunch of different molds when needed.
Yeah,
like
I can
this.
see that. Yeah, I mean, that was incredible. So can you tell me a little bit about how you were able to assemble, like, so you got that audio of his poem ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
but how did you sit in your room or wherever you were and shape kind of an idea of what that sound was?
I tried to let the words lead, because I'll have a habit of like letting the music lead, and I'll focus too much on like what I'm gonna play. So I read the poems like multiple times over, listened to them being read by Austin, and I think I just tried to pick up on the feeling from the story, and then I wanted to enhance that through the music. So I think that's kind of how I went about it.
You did it incredibly. I mean, like, so far I'm blown away because you guys just met too, and
Mm-hmm.
you're able to just do that. So, one thing I really want to touch on is that you're an AZ local.
Mm-hmm.
Are you from Phoenix, or where are you from specifically?
I'm from Phoenix,
Okay.
around, I always tell people the I-17 and Greenway. That's where I grew up. I don't know if that counts as North Phoenix.
I don't know anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. It's all Phoenix.
They're all blending at some point, but okay, so you grew up around there. So what was it like finding a place to have a sound and exploring this atmosphere for your music? What was that journey like?
When I actually started college at MCC and I moved to Tempe, I was in a bunch of like local bands, and I got to see the community through that,
Yeah.
through the lens of like being in a band and like playing all those shows and meeting all those people and being heavily inspired by like Playboy Man Baby and like seeing those guys
Yeah.
get up there and just rock it out was super inspiring. And like at that same time, I was going to school for jazz, so I was kind of like living in these two worlds. So I think they just kind of melded over time.
Yeah, and where are you hoping to go with this? I mean, are you planning on staying here and embracing it, or are you just kind of going with the flow, or what are you seeing with yourself?
I think for the time being, I'll probably stay in Arizona.
Yeah.
And because I feel like there's still so many people I haven't met yet, and like, all that kind of opportunity stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's still so much to learn from all you guys and
Yeah.
all of the other artists in the scene. And yeah, I'm ready to just like soak all that up still.
We'd love to have you. I mean, especially here, I'd love to. Matt, I'm speaking for you. I'm sorry, but you gotta have this guy back, man. Like, I mean, you fill a room so pleasantly. With how you dress, number one. I love the fit.
Sure.
The fit's, killing. I saw him put this on too. He was like, he started buttoning up, got the bolo tie. I'm like, this guy's a real AZ guy. This guy, he gets it. But yeah, you fill a space lovely, and you allow his words to speak for themselves while also like finding that lovely little musical dialogue. So I'm really, especially with the Phoenix one, I mean, that one really hit, like, out of all of them, because I felt, first of all, home, but I also felt like you felt home, and you felt home, and we all did in our own, and I'm sure there's countless other ways both of you can do that for other people. So anyway, Joe, thank you, man. This
Yeah,
is
thank
really
you.
cool. We'll hear a little bit more from you, but
Cool.
yeah, let's, we got one more poem.
Yep,
And then
one
we'll
more
talk
poem.
to you again, sir, and kind of wrap this up. But yeah, this is sick. So
Amazing.
you're ready, sir.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the last poem of the night, and it is called Jimmy's High. And it's the last poem from my next full-length book, and it's kind of a narrative. It's a narrative piece for sure, kind of just a story. This one's called Jimmy's High. If you point your telescope up on this clear summer night, you might be able to spot Jimmy. He's probably too small to see from your backyard, but hey, you could tell your kids that any one of those airplanes could be him falling back to earth. Right about now, Jimmy is swimming through nothingness, like he has been for longer than he knows. Back in the rocket on Mars, Jimmy's captain is smoking his fourth cigarette and banging his fist against the table over and over again. The crew is shuffling away to the edge of the little kitchen as their coffee mugs bounce up and down. On Earth, mission control is in a code red. Every telescope from New York to LA is focused on finding their stick of hay in a pile of needles. Unfortunately for NASA, a little college newspaper caught word about Jimmy. Within an hour, every news station in the country was talking about this poor boy from Prairie Creek on their evening broadcast. Every kid with a pair of binoculars is straining out their window right about now, scanning the sky until bedtime. When you're hurtling through space slower than Mrs. Huckles rides her electric scooter through the supermarket, you have a lot to think about. For a while, Jimmy screamed. He screamed and screamed, flailing about for God knows how long. Jimmy thought of his mother giving him a hug on Thanksgiving, drinking beer with his friends on the roof, the children and wife he never met. Jimmy cried. He cried so long, the blackness began to look like a cape he thought he might be able to grab in his hands and pull away to unveil autumn in his little town, where everything would be okay again. Jimmy thought about movie theaters, wind chimes, school buses, and making love. He thought about being a kid and spending his summers trying to touch the bottom of Wilson's Lake, but never having enough breath. He thought about biting into a peach, falling off a bike, being so tired you pass out on the couch with the TV still on, and how bodies don't decompose in space. Jimmy will be 26 years, 4 months, and 18 days old until the sun explodes. He couldn't wipe his eyes in his spacesuit and helmet, so the tears dried on his cheeks. Maybe Jimmy would be found by a time-traveling orangutan or a teenage alien who ran away from their planet in the angstiest possible way. Or maybe he wouldn't be found. Maybe that would be just as well. Jimmy closed his eyes and saw nothing but the color of wind. Whew.
Indeed.
Poetry snaps for Joe. Oh my God.
we should have had a sound effect in for some.
Yeah, the poetry snaps.
That's our next time. But we'll make a note of that. That was really cool, man. Thank you. I'm gonna just jump right into having you take a seat.
For sure. Yeah.
There's a lot to touch on for this this next part of like talking to you, because earlier you had 2 poems that specifically addressed homelessness.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, in your personal life you have been working on something, he'll tell me the extent of that mission, but you've been working on something big. And, you know, I'm curious to know how you found yourself in that mindset and what it is you're trying to do with that and accomplish.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm the community outreach organizer for Arizona Jews for Justice, and I lead our homeless outreach program, which is called AZ Hugs for the Houseless. And there's a big tent city in Phoenix called The Zone. And I went out there for the first time a little over a year ago and met people, talked to some folks, handed out some water. And every day since then, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. So that's really how the project began. And you know, from there, the big point of the project is to show people that we care about them and that we're a friend and that they're not alone. You know, as we were talking about earlier when we were talking a little while ago, loneliness is one of the most painful emotions that a human can feel, you know, and for those living on the streets right now, it's even more exponentially more so difficult, you know, to be, especially at night, you know, because a lot of people go through this alone, you know, so to show some folks that, you know, we care about them, that we're friends, you know, that they're not alone. I think that's the big goal for me, really.
Yeah. Well, so with those 2 poems, then did you write them after you'd first visited, or what was the order of events for both of those?
So the first poem, Phoenix, I started writing it last summer when I was going out there during the heat of Arizona summer, which is just terrifying for those in the streets, you know.
Yeah, it's deadly.
So I started just, you know, pinning some ideas, you know, putting some stuff down, and that one took a while to write because it pulled together everything I was experiencing in the moment with what I had also felt for years living in Phoenix, you know, and just pulling stuff from my memory and pulling stuff from what's going on right now, you know, and trying to put all of that together into this piece that I hoped would, you know, as you said earlier, remind people of home, you know, but also show that like there's huge problems and people are struggling and like
you have to help the home you live in too.
Yeah, you have to help the home you live in, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
The second poem was written in the moment, you know, and I've been writing a lot of poems like that in the moment, kind of dedicated to a specific person, you know.
Oh, okay.
And it's just, you know, I'll experience these things with folks and I'll learn something, you know, about humanity and myself and the wider world, and I'll need to put that down on paper, you know.
So how do you propose, how can people help and participate in, I mean, first of all, what needs to be done? What needs to be, from what you've noticed, what kind of help needs to be present?
You know, what I've been telling folks is that just in your day-to-day lives, you can do a lot to help people. I mean, the summer is super dangerous for people on the streets. And if you driving around in your day-to-day life, you know, and you keep a cooler in your car with some water and you give from it when you see someone on the streets, that'll save lives, you know. And you know, beyond that, the emotional aspect, if you're going into a grocery store and you see someone outside, even if you don't have the money to buy someone something from inside, just stop and say hello and ask how they're doing, because I've seen that really means a lot, you know, because oftentimes those in the streets feel like people look the other way and they don't want to look at them, they don't want to engage, you know, and that hurts. People tell me all the time when they're flying their signs, you know, on the side of a street, people will like turn away from them, they won't even look at them, you know, and people say they have to take a break from flying their sign because it's so emotionally draining to be cast away that much all day.
Yeah, so so acknowledgements, small things can...
The small things, yeah, just try to be a friend, you know?
Yeah, no, and it's great because we were talking before the stream and you'd actually met some of the guys that are around Tempe and on Mill, and some of them are very talented musicians, and you're even saying that beyond that, there's this world of musicians out there who are on the streets, but they still find and garner some sort of artistic sense and presence, and they use that to, I guess, help with their loneliness.
Yeah, I mean, some of the most creative and talented people I've met in my entire life are living on the streets right now, and you know, they're rappers and poets, philosophers, musicians, you know, and they all have something to share and something valuable to tell us, you know. So that's been a big goal the last couple months. We just held like a big art drive. People donated tons of art supplies, and we went out to Phoenix and gave everyone that we could, you know, paints and canvases and you know, sketch pads, you know, writing journals to write poems. Like as I was leaving that day, people were creating and their hands were covered in paint, and it was just, I can't really describe that feeling, but it was such a beautiful experience.
You should do a poem on it.
Yeah, I probably will, honestly.
I would love that. I mean, so you mentioned that people donated. Is there a way, like even someone like myself, is there ways that people can get directly involved and help you in your operations? And
for sure.
How can people do that?
People join me every week on deliveries, you know.
Oh,
so
really?
if you want to get in there and hit the streets, you know, join me. And everyone, this is an open project, and you know, the key to progression is collaboration. So all of us just working together, we can get monumental things done.
How often do you do this?
So almost every day I go to a different city.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You drive around.
I kind of just drive around,
Holy
and
hell.
I love driving and I love just listening to music. So it's a
works.
jam, yeah.
And you get a mixtape of Joe's stuff.
I definitely will. I need that, man. Hell yeah.
That's wild. So you will go. So like for example, you'll be in Phoenix for one day, but then you'll go to like what Tucson or Sedona. Where's your
usually around the valley, so like Mesa, Gilbert, Apache Junction,
That's
Tempe,
still a
Phoenix.
Lot of driving, man. That's wild.
Yeah, you know, but one thing that I do is I give my number out to people I meet on the streets. So if someone needs a friend, you know, someone will call me, and then I'll drive and hang out with them. And that happens sometimes where someone's like, I'm having a really bad night. Do you want to come and get some food? You know, and I'll just drive to whatever city they're in, and we'll hang out. You know, and
so nice.
It's been the most impactful part of my life for sure.
That's so cool,
most meaningful.
Anyway, no, this is cool. I think this is and it's a criminally underrated conversation. You know, I mean, you see it every once in a while on posts online, and there's always this social media activism, but it really speaks volumes to see someone go out there and do something. Literally go and do something, even if it's just having a conversation, and you're welcoming everyone, and you're making sure that they're somehow accounted for, and they're not disregarded. And I think that's Oh man, like thank you for doing that. I mean, I don't know. I think we should all aspire to work that way. So
Thank you, man. It's a huge community project. So, people all over the state are, everyone's pitching in. We have tons of partnerships, and it's just,
that's great.
It's just a huge thing,
Do you see, I mean, especially now with everything that's happened, do you see any sort of change on the horizon? Do you see this getting better, getting worse? Are you guys planning for either scenario? How does that affect,
Well, over the last couple months during COVID, one of the most heartbreaking things that I've seen and having conversations with folks is I've met a lot of people who say they're new to homelessness, like they've had a stable job in an apartment for a long time, and because of COVID, or they lost their job or something, medical bills, whatever it is, they've been displaced to the streets, so that's been really heartbreaking for me to see.
Wow. Okay, so you guys are still having to strategize and figure out how to adapt to those newer, that's awful. But I would love to explore that with you as time goes on. I do want to talk a little bit that last poem as well, Jimmy. I was curious to know who that is and a little bit about if those, because I felt like there are patterns with all of your pieces tonight, and I don't know if there's already in your mind what that pattern is, but I felt like hearing that story and hearing that, I don't know, it felt like some kind of permanent isolation.
I've been writing a lot about isolation and loneliness, and these are poems that I've written during COVID, during the pandemic, where the whole world, we've all felt this shared loneliness and this shared isolation, and this is just my way of coping with it, really, is putting it down on paper and exploring it, because oftentimes when I feel something, I don't really understand it until I read a poem about it, and I can, walk inside that feeling, and look around and sit down for a second, take a breath, smoke a cigarette there,
I think that's, and I can tell that you're very thoughtful, so you don't immediately just put your thoughts out there. You want to take a moment and gestate and figure out how many different ways. And there was one line, especially that I loved, where it was, you said his age, and then like that's permanently the age. I just love
that. Was just I read that fact, or I saw it on something where like if you die in space, you're not going to age anymore. That's like permanence or something, and that was like hauntingly sad and like hauntingly scary to me.
I could feel that.
And that's honestly, that's me writing poems. It's all just about like my own fears and stuff, but I'm just like trying to figure out what that is and what my place is in the world and moving through that.
Well, I think you've carved out a very nice place for yourself. Now, to speak to that, I mean, do you read these poems? Do you go out when you're doing your runs and your drop-offs, deliveries, or even just spending time? Do you read these poems to any of them and anyone? Yeah,
I've shared my poems with people because oftentimes someone will share their poem with me, and I'll say, "Here's a poem I wrote," So it's not always, not often, but sometimes, I've had moments like that where we'll just sit down on a curbside and exchange poems, and I go home and cry, but it's tears of joy, like we just shared this superhuman raw moment of us both, sharing with each other our shared experience in this world.
Yeah, and one that I think is deeply rooted and something we're going to have to continually address as time goes on. I mean, whether it's on the streets or even someone in their house on the computer, people are gradually getting more isolated. And they're getting more alone, and we need to speak to those things and in every avenue we can. So I think that's what are usually the reactions when people hear your poems or you have that moment of exchange? What do you usually feel from them, or what do you see in them when that happens?
Yeah, well, one-on-one, usually when I share poems with either those on the streets or friends or something, we'll just hug. And I'm a big, very huggy person.
Oh, so, I actually wanted to hug you when you walked in, and I was like, I'll wait. But
I'll hug you later. I'm a very, huggy, touchy person, and I don't know, that means a lot to me, is the physical intimacy of just friendship,
Yeah,
so,
man.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, this was such a joy. This was our first time doing something like this scale, and to hear what you had in mind and to hear what you're working on and what you're trying to resolve and find peace with in your own life. It's great. I mean, these are really important, discussion points. These are really important things to think about and to feel out, especially during a time like this, So thank you so much for doing this. And Joe, thank you
for
too.
Having me.
I'm gonna steal that chair. I'm gonna have you go back there. I'm gonna stand, because I want to promote these guys one more time. And Joe, I might have you even play us out if that's cool. Just make something up.
Yeah.
We can give them some improv moment. But yeah, I'm gonna just slide over here real quick because Unity's. I mean, these guys have been. I don't know how that. That was probably not the most graceful transition, but whatever. Who cares? We have this. Yeah, so
I'm
you gotta,
getting
you
hit.
gotta, yeah. It's like I'll scoot in more. Yeah, you're like, see you later. No. I got some other things to do. But yeah, man, this was so much fun. If you guys are watching tonight, please tell people, share what we can do. I mean, to have collaboration efforts from people in the community, whether it's just the venue space with Matthew and Unity Through Community, or it's Austin and his efforts in trying to make people feel a little less alone in this world and feel taken care of in the simplest ways, or even Joe, who's just a baller, man. He's killing it. He's found a lovely sound, and he's been able to share that and add to people's already extensive texture. So I love this ability to do this, and the only way we can continue is if people give it a watch and find other artists throughout the state, and we can do these wonderful collaboration works, and we can continue to grow and better refine the people around us. And I think that's our shared goal and vision. So we're going to be here next Thursday. As far as if an artist doesn't cancel, we'll be back again Thursday. It's always iffy, but we're going to do our best to have a show next week. So thank you for tuning in, and always 7 p.m. always Thursdays unless the artist cancels. Thank you again, Unity, and we'll see you guys later.